Question 1. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a comprehensive ADA accessibility upgrade for the main entrance, including a ramp and automatic door opener, would be a significant capital expenditure. However, the current entrance presents a substantial barrier for individuals using wheelchairs or with mobility impairments. The property manager is considering delaying these upgrades until a major renovation is scheduled, which is several years away, or implementing less costly, temporary solutions that offer minimal improvement. What is the most appropriate course of action for the property manager to ensure ADA compliance while managing financial resources effectively? Option A. Focus on improving interior accessibility features, such as signage and restroom modifications, and address the main entrance barrier only if a formal complaint is filed. Option B. Immediately implement the ramp and automatic door opener for the main entrance, as this is a readily achievable modification that addresses a significant accessibility barrier. Option C. Defer all ADA accessibility upgrades until the major renovation is scheduled, as this will allow for a more integrated and potentially cost-effective solution. Option D. Implement temporary, low-cost solutions like a portable ramp that can be removed when not in use, as a placeholder until a permanent solution can be funded. Correct answer is B. Immediately implement the ramp and automatic door opener for the main entrance, as this is a readily achievable modification that addresses a significant accessibility barrier. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge for real property administrators, balancing operational efficiency and cost with legal mandates for accessibility. The core difficulty lies in interpreting and applying the Americans with Disabilities Act (ADA) to existing structures, which often involves significant capital investment and potential disruption. The administrator must navigate the complexities of readily achievable barrier removal, understanding that while not every barrier must be removed immediately, a proactive and systematic approach is required. The ethical imperative to provide equal access for individuals with disabilities, coupled with the legal obligation to comply with the ADA, necessitates careful planning and prioritization. The correct approach involves conducting a thorough accessibility audit to identify all potential barriers, then developing a phased plan for removing those barriers that are readily achievable. This plan should prioritize modifications that provide the greatest access to the most people, considering factors like cost, impact, and the nature of the disability. This aligns directly with the ADA mandate for accessible facilities and services, emphasizing a practical and progressive approach to compliance. It demonstrates a commitment to both legal obligations and ethical responsibility by actively seeking solutions to improve accessibility. An incorrect approach would be to ignore accessibility concerns due to perceived high costs or lack of immediate complaints. This fails to acknowledge the proactive nature of ADA compliance and the potential for legal action and reputational damage. It also overlooks the ethical obligation to ensure all individuals can access and utilize the property. Another incorrect approach would be to implement superficial changes that do not address the root causes of inaccessibility or fail to consult with disability advocacy groups. This approach is likely to be ineffective, potentially leading to further noncompliance and dissatisfaction. Finally, focusing solely on cosmetic improvements without addressing fundamental accessibility issues, such as restroom access or ramp installation, demonstrates a misunderstanding of the ADA core purpose and priorities. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the specific requirements of the ADA as they apply to their property type. This involves consulting relevant ADA standards and seeking expert advice if necessary. A comprehensive audit should then be performed, followed by a strategic planning process that prioritizes modifications based on achievability and impact. Engaging with stakeholders, including tenants and disability advocates, can provide valuable insights and foster a collaborative approach to compliance. Regular review and updates to the accessibility plan are crucial to ensure ongoing adherence to legal requirements and best practices. Question 2. The efficiency study reveals that upgrading the building's main electrical distribution panel and associated wiring to a newer, more energy-efficient model could result in significant annual operational cost savings. However, the study was conducted by a general efficiency consulting firm, and the proposed upgrades involve complex electrical work. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the real property administrator? Option A. Engage licensed, certified electrical engineers to thoroughly review the study's findings, assess the technical feasibility and safety of the proposed upgrades, and ensure full compliance with all current local and national electrical codes and safety standards before any implementation. Option B. Proceed with the electrical system upgrades immediately, as the potential for significant operational cost savings is a primary objective for property management. Option C. Defer any action on the electrical system upgrades, as the study was not conducted by a specialized electrical engineering firm, and the risks associated with electrical work are too high. Option D. Inform the building owner of the potential cost savings and request approval to proceed with the upgrades based solely on the efficiency studies report. The correct answer is A. Engage licensed, certified electrical engineers to thoroughly review the study's findings, assess the technical feasibility and safety of the proposed upgrades, and ensure full compliance with all current local and national electrical codes and safety standards before any implementation. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires the real property administrator, RPA, to balance operational efficiency with regulatory compliance and tenant safety concerning electrical systems. The efficiency study highlights potential cost savings, but these must be evaluated against the backdrop of established safety standards and legal obligations. A hasty decision based solely on cost reduction could lead to significant legal liabilities, safety hazards, and damage to the property's reputation. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the efficiency study's recommendations by qualified electrical engineers and adherence to all applicable building codes and electrical safety regulations. This ensures that any proposed changes are not only cost-effective, but also safe, compliant, and sustainable. Specifically, this approach aligns with the RPA's ethical duty to maintain the property in a safe and sound condition, and their legal obligation to comply with all relevant building and electrical codes, such as those promulgated by the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, and local building authorities, which are paramount in ensuring the safety of occupants and the integrity of the electrical infrastructure. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate cost savings without proper technical and regulatory vetting fails to uphold the RPA's professional responsibilities. This could involve implementing recommendations from the study without consulting certified electricians or verifying compliance with current electrical codes. Such an action would be a direct violation of the RPA's duty of care and could expose the property owner to significant liability in the event of an electrical incident, fire, or system failure. Furthermore, it disregards the principle of due diligence, which mandates that all property management decisions, especially those impacting critical infrastructure like electrical systems, must be informed by expert advice and regulatory adherence. Another incorrect approach might be to dismiss the efficiency study entirely without a proper assessment. Caution is necessary, ignoring potential improvements that could enhance safety and reduce long-term operating costs is also professionally unsound. A responsible RPA should investigate all viable options, even those that initially seem disruptive, to ensure the property is managed optimally. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation. 1. Understand the core issue. Identify the problem or opportunity presented, e.g., efficiency study findings. 2. Gather information, collect all relevant data including the study itself, existing system documentation, and historical maintenance records. 3. Consult experts, engage qualified professionals, e.g., licensed electricians, building code consultants, to assess the technical feasibility and safety implications of any proposed changes. 4. Review regulations. Thoroughly research and understand all applicable local, state, and federal building codes, electrical safety standards, and environmental regulations. 5. Evaluate options. Compare the potential benefits, cost savings, improved performance against the risks, safety hazards, non-compliance, capital expenditure for each viable approach. 6. Document decisions. Maintain clear records of the evaluation process, expert consultation, regulatory reviews, and the final decision, including the rationale behind it. 7. Implement and monitor. Execute the chosen plan with proper oversight and establish a system for ongoing monitoring and evaluation of the implemented changes. Question 3. Risk assessment procedures indicate that the electrical transformer, switchgear, panels, breakers, and wiring in a 30-year-old commercial office building are showing signs of age, including occasional flickering lights and minor overheating reported by tenants. As the real property administrator, Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional responsibilities and regulatory expectations for managing these electrical components? Option A. Assume that the electrical system is still functional and safe because no major incidents have occurred to date, and continue with the current maintenance schedule. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive, documented risk assessment of all electrical components, prioritizing potential failures based on likelihood and severity, and develop a phased mitigation plan that may include professional inspections, repairs, or replacements. Option C. Immediately replace all electrical components with the cheapest available alternatives to address the reported issues promptly. Option D. Wait for a complete electrical failure to occur before initiating any repairs or replacements to avoid unnecessary expenses. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive, documented risk assessment of all electrical components, prioritizing potential failures based on likelihood and severity, and develop a phased mitigation plan that may include professional inspections, repairs, or replacements. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a real property administrator, RPA, due to the critical nature of electrical infrastructure in a commercial building. The RPA must balance operational efficiency, tenant safety, and regulatory compliance when addressing potential issues with aging electrical components. Failure to properly assess and manage these risks can lead to significant financial losses, legal liabilities, and reputational damage. The complexity arises from the need to understand the technical implications of electrical systems, interpret relevant building codes and safety standards, and make informed decisions about maintenance, repair, or replacement within budgetary constraints. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of identifying potential hazards associated with the transformer, switchgear, panels, breakers, and wiring, assessing the likelihood and severity of these hazards, and implementing appropriate mitigation strategies. This aligns with the RPA's ethical duty to maintain a safe and functional property, and with regulatory requirements that mandate proactive risk management for building systems. Specifically, this approach would involve consulting the building's original electrical plans, conducting visual inspections, reviewing maintenance logs, and potentially engaging qualified electrical engineers for expert assessment. The goal is to prioritize actions based on the level of risk, ensuring that critical systems are maintained to prevent failures that could endanger occupants or disrupt operations. This proactive stance is a cornerstone of responsible property management and aligns with industry best practices for asset management and safety. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to defer any action until a failure occurs. This reactive strategy is professionally unacceptable because it directly contravenes the principles of risk management and safety. It ignores the RPA's responsibility to anticipate and prevent problems, potentially leading to catastrophic failures, injuries, or significant business interruption, all of which are preventable through foresight. Such inaction would likely violate building codes and safety regulations that require systems to be maintained in a safe operating condition. Another incorrect approach is to solely rely on the lowest cost option for any identified issue without a thorough risk assessment. This is professionally unsound, as it prioritizes short-term financial savings over long-term safety and operational integrity. A cheaper, but inadequate repair or replacement could lead to recurring problems, increased downtime, and ultimately higher costs, in addition to posing safety risks. This approach fails to consider the potential consequences of a substandard solution and neglects the RPA's fiduciary duty to protect the asset and its occupants. A third incorrect approach is to assume that because the electrical components have functioned without obvious issues, they do not require any proactive assessment. This is a dangerous assumption that ignores the inherent risks of aging infrastructure. Electrical systems degrade over time due to wear and tear, environmental factors, and increased load demands. A lack of visible problems does not equate to a lack of underlying risk. This approach is a failure of due diligence and can lead to sudden, unexpected failures with severe consequences. Professional reasoning. Professionals in property administration should adopt a proactive and systematic approach to managing electrical infrastructure. This involves establishing a regular inspection and maintenance schedule, keeping detailed records of all assessments and interventions, and staying informed about relevant building codes and safety standards. When faced with potential issues, the decision-making process should involve 1. identifying the specific component and its potential failure modes. 2. Assessing the likelihood and impact of failure, considering factors like age, usage, and environmental conditions. 3. Consulting with qualified professionals, e.g., licensed electricians, engineers for expert evaluation. 4. Evaluating mitigation options, including repair, replacement, or upgrades based on risk level, cost-effectiveness, and long-term building performance. 5. Documenting the entire process and the rationale for the chosen course of action. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and prioritize the safety and well-being of building occupants and the integrity of the property. Question 4. Investigation of a building owner's request to replace an outdated HVAC system in a mid-rise office building reveals a desire for significant cost savings and improved tenant comfort. The RPA must recommend a suitable HVAC system upgrade. Which of the following approaches best balances these objectives with professional responsibility and regulatory compliance? Option A. Recommend a large, centralized packaged unit system that has historically been used in similar buildings, without investigating newer, potentially more energy-efficient alternatives or specific building load calculations. Option B. Prioritize the HVAC system with the lowest initial purchase and installation cost, assuming it will provide the most immediate financial benefit to the owner. Option C. Select a variable refrigerant flow (VRF) system due to its advanced technology and potential for zone control, without a detailed analysis of its suitability for the building's specific load profiles and existing ductwork. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive assessment of the building's current energy consumption, occupancy patterns, and future operational needs, followed by a comparative analysis of central systems, packaged units, and VRF systems, considering energy efficiency, life cycle costs, and compliance with local building and energy codes, and consult with HVAC engineering professionals. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the HVAC system with the lowest initial purchase and installation cost, assuming it will provide the most immediate financial benefit to the owner. Explanation: this scenario presents a common implementation challenge for a real property administrator, RPA, where a building owner is seeking to upgrade an aging HVAC system. The challenge lies in balancing the owner's desire for cost savings and improved occupant comfort with the need to select a system that is not only technically suitable, but also compliant with relevant building codes and energy efficiency standards, which are paramount in professional property management. The RPA must navigate the complexities of different HVAC technologies and their suitability for the specific building's characteristics and operational needs. The correct approach involves a thorough needs assessment and a comparative analysis of system types, prioritizing energy efficiency and long-term operational costs, aligning with the RPA's ethical duty to act in the best interest of the property owner and to maintain the property in a responsible and sustainable manner. This aligns with the principles of responsible property management, which often include adherence to energy codes and best practices for building performance. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the lowest upfront installation cost. This fails to consider the long-term operational expenses, potential for higher energy consumption, and the risk of not meeting current or future energy efficiency mandates, which could lead to increased operating costs and potential noncompliance. Another incorrect approach would be to select a system based on its perceived technological sophistication, without a proper evaluation of its suitability for the building's size, occupancy patterns, and existing infrastructure. This could result in an inefficient or improperly functioning system, leading to occupant dissatisfaction and increased maintenance burdens. Finally, an approach that neglects to consult with qualified HVAC engineers and building code officials would be a significant professional failing, as it bypasses essential expertise and regulatory compliance checks, potentially leading to costly retrofits or legal issues. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic process. First, clearly define the project objectives and constraints, budget, comfort levels, energy targets. Second, gather comprehensive data about the building's current performance and needs. Third, research and evaluate potential HVAC solutions, considering their technical merits, energy efficiency, life cycle costs, and compliance with all applicable regulations. Fourth, engage with qualified professionals, engineers, contractors, for expert advice and proposals. Finally, present a well-reasoned recommendation to the owner, supported by data and a clear understanding of the implications of each choice. Question 5. Governance review demonstrates that the building's emergency power systems, comprising both generators and uninterruptible power supplies, UPS, have experienced intermittent operational issues over the past year. The RPA is tasked with recommending a strategy to ensure their reliability and compliance with all applicable regulations. Which of the following approaches represents the most professionally responsible and compliant course of action? Option A. Contract with the lowest cost service provider for any required maintenance or repairs, prioritizing cost savings over the provider's specific expertise or adherence to regulatory standards. Option B. Implement a rigorous, scheduled preventative maintenance and testing program for all emergency power system components, strictly adhering to manufacturer guidelines and relevant local and national building and fire safety codes, with detailed record keeping. Option C. Focus solely on immediate repairs whenever a component fails, deferring any scheduled maintenance until a problem arises to minimize upfront expenditure. Option D. Establish a minimal, as-needed maintenance schedule that only addresses reported malfunctions, without proactive testing or preventative measures. The correct answer is B. Implement a rigorous, scheduled preventative maintenance and testing program for all emergency power system components, strictly adhering to manufacturer guidelines and relevant local and national building and fire safety codes, with detailed record keeping. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a real property administrator, RPA, due to the critical nature of emergency power systems in ensuring building safety, operational continuity, and compliance with regulations. The RPA must balance the immediate need for reliable backup power with the long-term considerations of system maintenance, cost-effectiveness, and adherence to evolving standards. The challenge lies in selecting an approach that is not only technically sound, but also ethically responsible and legally compliant within the specified jurisdiction. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves prioritizing a comprehensive, proactive maintenance and testing schedule for both generators and UPS systems, aligned with manufacturer recommendations and relevant building codes and standards. This approach is justified by regulatory requirements that mandate the reliable operation of emergency power systems to safeguard occupants and critical building functions during power outages. For instance, in many U.S. jurisdictions, the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA codes, e.g., NFPA 110 for emergency and standby power systems, are adopted, requiring regular testing and maintenance to ensure readiness. Ethically, an RPA has a duty to ensure the safety and well-being of building occupants, which directly translates to maintaining functional emergency power. This proactive strategy minimizes the risk of system failure, reduces the likelihood of costly emergency repairs, and ensures compliance, thereby protecting the building owner and occupants from potential harm and liability. Incorrect approaches analysis. Focusing solely on reactive repairs after a failure is an incorrect approach because it violates the principle of proactive risk management mandated by emergency power system regulations. This reactive strategy leads to unexpected downtime, potential safety hazards, and often higher repair costs. It fails to meet the ongoing testing and maintenance requirements stipulated by codes like NFPA 110, creating a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Implementing a minimal, as-needed maintenance plan that only addresses immediate issues is also an incorrect approach. This strategy, while seemingly cost-saving in the short term, neglects the critical need for regular, scheduled preventative maintenance and load testing. Such a plan is insufficient to guarantee the reliability of emergency power systems, directly contravening regulatory expectations for preparedness and potentially leading to system failure when it is most needed, representing a serious ethical lapse in duty of care. Adopting a maintenance schedule based purely on the lowest cost provider without verifying their expertise or adherence to regulatory standards is an incorrect approach. While cost efficiency is a consideration, it cannot supersede the paramount importance of system reliability and regulatory compliance. Engaging unqualified or non-compliant service providers can lead to improper maintenance, system malfunctions, and ultimately, a failure to meet legal and ethical obligations for emergency power system readiness. This approach prioritizes financial considerations over safety and compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific regulatory landscape governing emergency power systems in their jurisdiction. This includes identifying applicable building codes, fire safety regulations, and any specific standards, like NFPA. The next step is to assess the current state of the emergency power systems, including their age, type, and maintenance history. Based on this assessment and regulatory requirements, a robust, preventative maintenance and testing program should be developed and implemented. This program should be regularly reviewed and updated to reflect changes in regulations, manufacturer recommendations, and operational experience. Budgetary considerations should be integrated into this plan, but never at the expense of safety or compliance. Regular reporting and documentation of all maintenance and testing activities are crucial for demonstrating due diligence and compliance. Question 6. The risk matrix shows a high probability of tenant dissatisfaction and potential equipment damage due to intermittent electronic device failures in the west wing of the building. As the real property administrator, you suspect power quality issues stemming from the electrical distribution system. Which approach best addresses this situation? Option A. Advise tenants to install individual surge protectors on all their electronic devices as a precautionary measure. Option B. Immediately recommend that all tenants in the West Wing replace their sensitive electronic equipment with newer, more robust models. Option C. Conduct a detailed audit of the electrical distribution system, including reviewing load calculations, identifying the system type and voltage, and analyzing the nature of the reported equipment failures in conjunction with any available power quality monitoring data. Option D. Rely solely on tenant complaints to schedule a general electrical system inspection without specific diagnostic data. The correct answer is B. Immediately recommend that all tenants in the West Wing replace their sensitive electronic equipment with newer, more robust models. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for real property administrators, RPA, involving the identification and mitigation of potential power quality issues within a commercial building. The professional challenge lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause of intermittent equipment malfunctions and understanding the implications of various electrical distribution system characteristics on sensitive electronic loads. RPAs must balance operational efficiency, tenant satisfaction, and regulatory compliance, all while managing the financial implications of potential remediation. The risk matrix highlights the potential for significant disruption and financial loss if these issues are not addressed proactively and correctly. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation that begins with understanding the building's existing electrical distribution system's design and operational parameters. This includes reviewing load calculations, identifying the types of distribution systems in place e.g., single-phase, three-phase, voltage levels, and assessing the presence of any power quality mitigation equipment. The next critical step is to analyze the nature of the reported equipment malfunctions, correlating them with potential power quality disturbances such as voltage sags, swells, harmonics, or transients. This analysis should leverage available building management system data, tenant feedback, and potentially specialized power quality monitoring equipment. The ultimate goal is to identify the specific cause of the power quality issue and recommend appropriate, cost-effective solutions that comply with relevant building codes and electrical standards, such as those outlined by the National Electrical Code, NEC, in the U.S. This approach prioritizes a thorough understanding of the system and the problem before implementing solutions, ensuring that remediation efforts are targeted and effective. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that immediately suggests replacing all affected electronic equipment without investigating the underlying electrical distribution system is professionally unacceptable. This fails to address the root cause of the problem, leading to recurring issues and unnecessary capital expenditure for tenants and building ownership. It also bypasses the RPA's responsibility to ensure the building's infrastructure supports its intended use. Another incorrect approach is to implement generic power quality solutions, such as installing surge protectors on all circuits without a proper diagnosis. While surge protectors address transient overvoltages, they do not resolve issues like harmonic distortion or voltage imbalances, which can cause similar equipment malfunctions. This approach is inefficient, potentially costly, and does not guarantee resolution. Finally, an approach that relies solely on tenant complaints without any objective data collection or analysis of the electrical system is insufficient. While tenant feedback is crucial, it needs to be corroborated with technical investigation to pinpoint the exact cause and location of the power quality problem. Ignoring the technical aspects of the electrical distribution system means the problem will likely persist. Professional reasoning. When faced with such a scenario, RPAs should employ a structured problem-solving framework. This begins with clearly defining the problem based on reported symptoms and initial observations. Next, gather all relevant data, including building plans, electrical schematics, maintenance records, and tenant feedback. Conduct a thorough assessment of the electrical distribution system, considering load calculations, system configuration, and any existing power quality monitoring. Analyze the collected data to identify potential causes of power quality issues, referencing relevant codes and standards. Develop a prioritized list of potential solutions, evaluating their effectiveness, cost, and compliance. Implement the chosen solution and monitor its performance to ensure the issue is resolved. This systematic, data-driven, and code-compliant approach ensures effective problem resolution and upholds professional responsibility. Question 7. When evaluating potential cost-saving measures for a commercial property, which approach best balances fiscal responsibility with the paramount importance of fire and life safety compliance? Option A. Replace existing, functional fire safety equipment with the cheapest available alternatives, regardless of their compliance with current building codes or long-term reliability. Option B. Defer all scheduled inspections and testing of fire and life safety equipment until a significant budget surplus is realized, assuming current systems are adequate. Option C. Implement immediate across-the-board reductions in maintenance budgets for all building systems, including fire suppression and alarm systems, to achieve short-term financial gains. Option D. Prioritize a thorough review of all existing fire and life safety systems, identifying any code deficiencies or areas for enhancement, and then exploring cost-effective upgrades or maintenance strategies that align with regulatory requirements and best practices. The correct answer is D. Prioritize a thorough review of all existing fire and life safety systems, identifying any code deficiencies or areas for enhancement, and then exploring cost-effective upgrades or maintenance strategies that align with regulatory requirements and best practices. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a real property administrator, RPA, to balance the immediate need for cost savings with the non-negotiable imperative of maintaining life safety standards. The RPA must understand that fire and life safety are not discretionary expenses, but are mandated by law and essential for occupant well-being and legal compliance. The challenge lies in identifying cost-effective solutions that do not compromise, but rather enhance safety protocols. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of existing fire and life safety systems, identifying any deficiencies or areas for improvement, and then exploring cost-effective upgrades or maintenance strategies that align with regulatory requirements. This approach prioritizes compliance and occupant safety while seeking efficiency. Specifically, it involves consulting relevant building codes and standards, e.g., NFPA codes, local building ordinances, conducting thorough inspections, and engaging qualified professionals to assess system performance. The justification for this approach is rooted in the RPA's fiduciary duty to the property owner and the legal obligation to provide a safe environment for tenants and visitors. Failure to do so can result in significant legal liabilities, fines, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing immediate operational costs without a thorough assessment of fire and life safety implications is professionally unacceptable. This could involve deferring essential maintenance on fire suppression systems, neglecting regular inspections of emergency exits, or opting for cheaper, non-compliant materials during renovations. Such actions directly violate regulatory frameworks that mandate specific safety standards and could lead to catastrophic failures during an emergency. Ethically, it represents a dereliction of duty to protect the lives and well-being of building occupants. Another incorrect approach might be to rely on outdated or incomplete documentation regarding the building's fire and life safety systems. This can lead to misinformed decisions about maintenance, upgrades, or emergency preparedness, potentially leaving critical systems in a compromised state without the RPA's knowledge. This failure to maintain accurate and current records is a breach of professional responsibility and can have severe consequences. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a hierarchical prioritization. First, ensuring compliance with all applicable fire and life safety regulations. Second, assessing the current state of systems and identifying risks. And third, exploring cost-effective strategies for maintenance, upgrades, or improvements that meet or exceed these safety standards. Engaging with qualified fire safety professionals and legal counsel when in doubt is crucial. The RPA must always err on the side of caution when life safety is concerned, understanding that the cost of prevention is invariably less than the cost of an incident. Question 8. The audit findings indicate that the building's emergency evacuation plan is outdated, evacuation drills have not been conducted consistently, and communication protocols for emergencies are insufficient. As the real property administrator, which of the following actions best addresses these deficiencies in accordance with RPA regulatory framework and best practices for occupant safety? Option A. Update the written evacuation plan with minor revisions and inform residents via a general building notice about the importance of evacuation procedures. Option B. Immediately revise the written evacuation plan to include current RPA guidelines and local fire codes, schedule quarterly documented evacuation drills with post-drill debriefs, and implement a multimodal communication system for emergency alerts and updates. Option C. Delegate the responsibility of updating the evacuation plan and conducting drills to the building's maintenance staff without further oversight. Option D. Conduct a single, unannounced evacuation drill to gauge resident reaction and rely on the building's existing public address system for all emergency communications. The correct answer is B. Immediately revise the written evacuation plan to include current RPA guidelines and local fire codes, schedule quarterly documented evacuation drills with post-drill debriefs, and implement a multimodal communication system for emergency alerts and updates. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a property administrator to balance immediate operational needs with long-term safety compliance and resident well-being. The core challenge lies in interpreting and applying the specific requirements of the RPA regulatory framework concerning emergency procedures, particularly evacuation plans, drills, and communication, in a situation where a recent audit has highlighted deficiencies. The administrator must move beyond simply acknowledging the audit findings to implementing concrete, compliant, and effective solutions. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review and update of the existing evacuation plan, ensuring it aligns with current RPA guidelines and local building codes. This includes verifying that the plan addresses various emergency scenarios, clearly defines roles and responsibilities, and incorporates accessible communication methods for all residents, including those with disabilities. Conducting regular, documented drills that simulate realistic evacuation conditions and debriefing sessions to identify areas for improvement are crucial. Furthermore, establishing a multi-channel communication strategy for disseminating emergency information before, during, and after an event is paramount. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the audit findings by proactively enhancing the building's emergency preparedness, adhering to the spirit and letter of RPA regulations designed to protect occupants, and fostering a culture of safety. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on updating the written evacuation plan without implementing practical measures like drills or robust communication protocols. This fails to test the efficacy of the plan or ensure residents are adequately prepared. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize cosmetic changes or superficial training that does not involve actual evacuation simulations, thereby not truly assessing or improving the building's response capabilities. A further incorrect approach is to rely on a single, outdated communication method, neglecting the diverse needs of the resident population, and failing to comply with RPA mandates for inclusive emergency messaging. These approaches are incorrect because they do not fulfill the comprehensive requirements of emergency preparedness as outlined by RPA, potentially leaving residents vulnerable and exposing the property to regulatory noncompliance and liability. Professionals should approach such situations by first thoroughly understanding the specific RPA regulations pertaining to emergency procedures. This involves consulting the official RPA handbook, relevant building codes, and any specific directives from regulatory bodies. Next, A systematic assessment of the current state of emergency preparedness should be conducted, using the audit findings as a starting point. This assessment should identify gaps in the evacuation plan, drill frequency and effectiveness, and communication strategies. Based on this assessment, a prioritized action plan should be developed, focusing on implementing compliant and effective solutions. Regular review and adaptation of these procedures based on drill outcomes, resident feedback, and evolving regulatory requirements are essential for maintaining a high standard of emergency preparedness. Question 9. Analysis of a property management team's approach to reducing operational costs through energy conservation initiatives, considering the need for a structured, data-driven methodology that aligns with industry, best practices, and regulatory expectations for commercial real estate. Option A. Engage tenants in a campaign to reduce their individual energy usage by simply asking them to turn off lights and unplug electronics when not in use. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive energy audit to identify inefficiencies, benchmark performance against similar buildings, and then develop a prioritized list of energy-saving strategies based on the findings. Option C. Focus exclusively on adjusting thermostat set points in unoccupied spaces to minimize heating and cooling, disregarding other potential energy-saving opportunities. Option D. Immediately implement a series of low-cost lighting retrofits across all common areas, without assessing overall building energy consumption. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive energy audit to identify inefficiencies, benchmark performance against similar buildings, and then develop a prioritized list of energy-saving strategies based on the findings. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a real property administrator, RPA, to balance competing priorities, the immediate need for cost savings through energy reduction, and the long-term strategic imperative of maintaining building performance and tenant satisfaction. Without a clear understanding of the regulatory framework governing energy management and sustainability in commercial real estate, an RPA could inadvertently implement strategies that are non-compliant, inefficient, or detrimental to the property's value and operational integrity. The pressure to demonstrate quick financial returns can often overshadow the need for thorough, data-driven decision-making, making careful judgment essential. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven process that begins with a comprehensive energy audit. This audit serves as the foundational step, providing a detailed understanding of the building's current energy consumption patterns, identifying areas of inefficiency, and establishing a baseline for future performance measurement. Following the audit, benchmarking the building's energy performance against similar properties, using recognized industry standards and tools, provides crucial context and identifies opportunities for improvement. Only after this rigorous assessment should the RPA develop and implement tailored energy-saving strategies, prioritizing those with the highest potential for return on investment and minimal disruption to building operations and occupants. This methodical approach aligns with best practices in property management and, in many jurisdictions, is implicitly or explicitly supported by regulations promoting energy efficiency and sustainable building practices. For instance, in the U.S., frameworks like Energy Star and various state-level building codes encourage or mandate such assessments and performance tracking. The ethical obligation of an RPA is to act in the best interest of the property owner and tenants, which includes responsible resource management and long-term asset preservation, all of which are facilitated by this structured process. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing energy-saving strategies without a prior energy audit is an incorrect approach because it bypasses the essential diagnostic phase. This can lead to the selection of ineffective or even counterproductive measures, wasting resources and potentially compromising building systems or tenant comfort. It represents a failure to exercise due diligence and a lack of professional responsibility in resource allocation. Focusing solely on immediate, low-cost retrofits without benchmarking or auditing is also an incorrect approach. While seemingly cost-effective in the short term, it ignores the potential for more significant savings through strategic upgrades or operational changes identified by a comprehensive assessment. This approach can lead to missed opportunities for substantial energy reduction and may not address the root causes of inefficiency, violating the principle of prudent asset management. Prioritizing tenant comfort over energy efficiency without any data to support the decision is an incorrect approach. While tenant satisfaction is paramount, making decisions without understanding the energy implications can lead to unnecessary energy consumption and increased operating costs, which ultimately impacts the property's profitability and sustainability goals. It demonstrates a lack of a balanced, data-informed decision-making process. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes a thorough understanding of the existing conditions before implementing solutions. This involves 1. Data collection and analysis, conducting comprehensive energy audits and utilizing benchmarking tools to establish a clear baseline and identify specific areas for improvement. 2. Strategy development, based on the data, developing a prioritized list of energy-saving strategies, considering factors such as cost-effectiveness, potential savings, implementation feasibility, and impact on building operations and occupants. 3. Implementation and monitoring, executing the chosen strategies and continuously monitoring energy performance to assess effectiveness and make necessary adjustments. This systematic, evidence-based approach ensures that decisions are not only financially sound, but also ethically responsible and compliant with relevant regulations, promoting energy efficiency and sustainable building practices. Question 10. Stakeholder feedback indicates recurring, intermittent power fluctuations affecting specific tenant suites, leading to concerns about equipment damage and operational disruptions. As the real property administrator, you need to address this issue effectively and responsibly. Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional RPA responsibilities and regulatory expectations for managing building systems? Option A. Engage a licensed electrician to conduct a comprehensive diagnostic assessment of the affected circuits and the building's electrical distribution system to identify the root cause and recommend appropriate repairs, ensuring all work complies with local electrical codes and standards. Option B. Advise tenants to avoid using high-demand appliances during peak hours, assuming the fluctuations are due to overloaded circuits, and defer further investigation until a more significant problem arises. Option C. Instruct the building's maintenance staff to temporarily reset circuit breakers in the affected suites whenever a power fluctuation is reported, as this has historically resolved the issue for short periods. Option D. Rely on general knowledge of electrical systems to suggest that the issue is likely minor and will resolve itself, without involving external specialists or conducting a formal investigation. The correct answer is A. Engage a licensed electrician to conduct a comprehensive diagnostic assessment of the affected circuits and the building's electrical distribution system to identify the root cause and recommend appropriate repairs, ensuring all work complies with local electrical codes and standards. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a real property administrator, RPA, to balance the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term implications of electrical system maintenance and safety, all while adhering to specific regulatory requirements. The RPA must interpret and apply complex technical information within a legal and ethical framework. The challenge lies in understanding the fundamental principles of electrical systems and how they relate to building operations, tenant comfort, and regulatory compliance without necessarily being an electrical engineer. The correct approach involves prioritizing a thorough, documented investigation into the root cause of the intermittent power fluctuations, consulting with qualified professionals, and ensuring all actions align with the building's maintenance plan and relevant safety codes. This approach is correct because it demonstrates due diligence, a commitment to tenant safety and comfort, and adherence to professional standards expected of an RPA. Specifically, it aligns with the general principles of responsible property management, which mandate ensuring the safety and habitability of the premises, often implicitly or explicitly referencing adherence to building codes and standards. By seeking expert advice and documenting the process, the RPA fulfills their fiduciary duty to the property owner and their obligation to tenants. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate, temporary fixes without understanding the underlying cause is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of due diligence and a disregard for potential safety hazards. Such an approach could violate building codes and safety regulations, leading to potential liability for the property owner and the RPA. It also fails to address the core issue, likely leading to recurring problems and increased costs in the long run. Another incorrect approach that involves ignoring the issue due to perceived minor impact is also professionally flawed. This demonstrates negligence and a failure to uphold the duty of care. Intermittent electrical issues, even if seemingly minor, can indicate underlying problems that pose significant safety risks, such as fire hazards or equipment damage. Ignoring such issues can lead to serious consequences and a breach of professional responsibility. A further incorrect approach that involves making assumptions about the cause without proper investigation is also unacceptable. This bypasses the necessary diagnostic steps and relies on guesswork, which is antithetical to professional practice. Electrical systems are complex, and assumptions can lead to incorrect diagnoses and ineffective or dangerous solutions. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic process. First, clearly define the problem and its impact. Second, gather information from all relevant sources, including tenant complaints and building system logs. Third, consult with qualified experts to diagnose the root cause. Fourth, evaluate potential solutions based on safety, cost, and long-term effectiveness, ensuring compliance with all applicable regulations. And finally, document all actions taken and decisions made. Question 11. The monitoring system demonstrates an intermittent fluctuation in voltage on a specific branch circuit serving a critical area. As the real property administrator, what is the most appropriate course of action to ensure electrical safety and regulatory compliance? Option A. Initiate a full replacement of all electrical outlets and wiring on the affected branch circuit to preemptively address any potential underlying issues. Option B. Log the voltage fluctuation in the building's maintenance records and schedule an inspection by a qualified electrician only if the fluctuations become severe or a visible issue arises. Option C. Immediately dispatch a qualified electrician to diagnose the cause of the voltage fluctuation, document all findings, and ensure any necessary repairs or adjustments comply with the National Electrical Code, NEC, and local ordinances. Option D. Advise building occupants in the affected area to minimize their use of electrical equipment until the voltage fluctuations cease on their own. The correct answer is C. Immediately dispatch a qualified electrician to diagnose the cause of the voltage fluctuation, document all findings, and ensure any necessary repairs or adjustments comply with the National Electrical Code, NEC, and local ordinances. Explanation. The monitoring system demonstrates a potential electrical fault condition, presenting a professionally challenging scenario for a real property administrator, RPA. The challenge lies in balancing immediate safety concerns with regulatory compliance and operational efficiency. A critical judgment is required to determine the appropriate response that mitigates risk without causing undue disruption or incurring unnecessary costs, all while adhering to the governing electrical safety codes and regulations. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented investigation of the fault, prioritizing immediate safety, and then ensuring compliance with the National Electrical Code, NEC, or equivalent local codes. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the potential hazard, fulfills the RPA's duty of care to building occupants, and ensures that any repairs or modifications are performed in accordance with established safety standards. Regulatory justification stems from the NEC's mandate to ensure electrical installations are safe and that faults are addressed promptly to prevent fires, shocks, or equipment damage. Ethical justification lies in the responsibility to provide a safe environment for all users of the property. An incorrect approach that involves ignoring the alert or deferring investigation indefinitely is professionally unacceptable. This failure directly violates the NEC's intent to maintain safe electrical systems and exposes the property owner and RPA to significant liability in the event of an incident. It also represents an ethical breach of the duty to protect occupants. Another incorrect approach, such as immediately replacing all components in the affected circuit without proper diagnosis, is also professionally unacceptable. While it might seem proactive, it is wasteful, potentially unnecessary, and bypasses the diagnostic steps required by good practice and often implied by code requirements for troubleshooting. This approach fails to identify the root cause and could lead to the unnecessary expenditure of resources. A third incorrect approach, which is to only address the alert if a visible sign of damage occurs, is a reactive and dangerous strategy. Electrical faults can exist and escalate without immediate visible indicators, and waiting for such signs significantly increases the risk of catastrophic failure, fire, or injury. This approach is a clear abdication of the RPA's responsibility for proactive safety management and regulatory compliance. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve 1. Immediate assessment of the potential safety risk based on the alert. 2. Consultation of relevant building codes and manufacturer specifications. 3. Engaging qualified personnel for diagnosis and repair. 4. Thorough documentation of all findings, actions, and compliance measures. And 5. Ongoing monitoring to ensure the issue is fully resolved and to prevent recurrence. Question 12. Research into the implementation of a preventive maintenance program for a commercial office building has revealed that the client, a new property owner, is requesting significant reductions in the scheduled preventive maintenance activities for the HVAC and roofing systems to immediately reduce operating expenses. As the real property administrator, RPA, you have identified that these proposed reductions deviate from the manufacturer's recommendations and industry best practices, potentially increasing the risk of costly emergency repairs and premature system failure. The client has indicated they are not concerned with these long-term risks, prioritizing immediate cost savings. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Proceed with the original, recommended preventive maintenance schedule without further consultation, assuming the client will eventually understand the necessity of these actions. Option B. Document the client's request and the identified risks in writing. Present a detailed analysis of the potential consequences of deferring maintenance, and obtain explicit written approval from the client to proceed with their requested reduced schedule, while clearly stating the RPA's professional recommendation. Option C. Inform the client that their request cannot be accommodated due to industry best practices and refuse to implement any changes to the maintenance schedule. Option D. Immediately implement the client's requested reductions to demonstrate responsiveness to their financial priorities and avoid immediate conflict. The correct answer is B. Document the client's request and the identified risks in writing. Present a detailed analysis of the potential consequences of deferring maintenance, and obtain explicit written approval from the client to proceed with their requested reduced schedule, while clearly stating the RPA's professional recommendation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial pressures of a client with the long-term operational integrity and safety of a property. The RPA must exercise sound judgment to uphold their professional responsibilities, which include ensuring the property is maintained to a standard that protects its value and the safety of its occupants, even when faced with a client who prioritizes cost savings over recommended preventive measures. The core ethical dilemma lies in the potential conflict between fiduciary duty to the client acting in their financial best interest and the duty to maintain the asset responsibly, which may involve recommending expenditures that seem counter to short-term cost reduction. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented communication process that clearly outlines the risks associated with deferring essential preventive maintenance. This approach prioritizes transparency and informed decision-making. The RPA should present a clear, evidence-based rationale for the recommended maintenance schedule, detailing the potential consequences of noncompliance, such as increased repair costs, potential safety hazards, and accelerated asset depreciation. This aligns with professional standards that emphasize proactive asset management and risk mitigation. By providing a comprehensive report and seeking explicit client direction, after presenting all relevant information, the RPA fulfills their duty to advise and protect the client's interests while also adhering to best practices in property management. This also ensures that if the client chooses to defer maintenance, the decision is made with full awareness of the implications, and the responsibility is clearly documented. An approach that immediately agrees to defer maintenance without a detailed risk assessment and clear client documentation is professionally unacceptable. This failure to adequately inform the client about the potential negative outcomes of their decision constitutes a breach of the duty of care and professional responsibility. It prioritizes short-term client satisfaction over the long-term health and value of the asset, potentially exposing the client to greater financial liabilities and safety risks down the line. Furthermore, it bypasses the essential step of creating a robust record of the client's decision and the RPA's professional advice, which is crucial for liability protection and demonstrating due diligence. Another incorrect approach is to proceed with the deferred maintenance without explicit client approval, assuming the client will understand or accept the decision later. This is a violation of the client's autonomy and the principle of informed consent. The RPA does not have the authority to unilaterally alter a maintenance program that has financial implications without clear authorization, especially when it deviates from recommended best practices. This action undermines trust and can lead to significant disputes. Finally, an approach that involves delaying the discussion with the client and continuing with the original, potentially inadequate, maintenance schedule without addressing the client's concerns is also professionally deficient. While it avoids immediate conflict, it fails to proactively manage the situation and address the client's stated desire for cost savings. This inaction can lead to the property falling into disrepair, ultimately costing the client more in the long run and damaging the RPA's professional reputation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the client's objective, cost savings. 2. Assessing the impact of the client's request on the property's condition, safety, and long-term value. 3. Developing a clear documented proposal that outlines recommended preventive maintenance, the rationale behind it, and the potential risks and costs associated with deferral. 4. Presenting this information transparently to the client, ensuring they understand the implications of their choices. 5. Obtaining explicit, documented client approval for any deviation from the recommended program. 6. Maintaining comprehensive records of all communications and decisions. Question 13. Process analysis reveals that the current tenant onboarding procedure for a commercial office building is time-consuming and involves multiple manual data entry points, leading to delays and potential errors. The RPA is tasked with optimizing this process to improve efficiency and reduce administrative burden. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the RPA's responsibilities and best practices for process optimization in a regulated environment? Option A. Immediately implement a new digital onboarding platform that automates data collection and document management without prior consultation with legal or existing tenants. Option B. Reduce the number of required onboarding documents and verification steps to expedite the process, assuming that tenants will appreciate the speed and that legal implications are minimal. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the existing onboarding workflow, identifying specific pain points and areas for improvement, and then develop a phased implementation plan for a new digital system, ensuring all proposed changes are vetted against lease agreements and relevant building codes, and that staff receive adequate training. Option D. Outsource the entire onboarding process to a third-party vendor without establishing clear performance metrics or oversight mechanisms, relying solely on the vendor's stated efficiency. The correct answer is A. Immediately implement a new digital onboarding platform that automates data collection and document management without prior consultation with legal or existing tenants. Explanation. Scenario analysis. A real property administrator, RPA, faces a common challenge when optimizing processes, balancing efficiency gains with the need to maintain compliance and tenant satisfaction. The pressure to reduce operational costs can sometimes lead to shortcuts that inadvertently violate lease agreements, regulatory requirements, or negatively impact the tenant experience. This scenario demands careful judgment to ensure that process improvements do not compromise the RPA's fiduciary duties or the long-term value of the property. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing workflows, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing solutions that are vetted against lease obligations, building codes, and industry best practices. This includes consulting with legal counsel and relevant stakeholders to ensure proposed changes are compliant and beneficial. The RPA's role is to enhance operational performance while upholding contractual and legal responsibilities, thereby protecting the asset and its occupants. This approach aligns with the ethical obligations of an RPA to act with due diligence and in the best interests of the property owner and tenants. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing changes solely based on cost reduction without a thorough review of lease agreements risks violating specific tenant rights or operational clauses, leading to potential disputes and legal liabilities. This ignores the contractual framework governing the landlord-tenant relationship. Adopting new technologies or procedures without adequate staff training can lead to errors, decreased efficiency, and safety hazards, undermining the intended process optimization and potentially creating new operational problems. This demonstrates a failure in due diligence and responsible management, focusing exclusively on speed of implementation without considering the impact on tenant experience or building operations can lead to dissatisfaction, increased complaints, and a decline in the property's reputation, ultimately harming its marketability and value. This overlooks the importance of stakeholder satisfaction in property management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach process optimization by first understanding the current state, identifying clear objectives, and then developing a plan that includes risk assessment and mitigation. This plan should be reviewed by all relevant parties, including legal, operations, and tenant representatives where appropriate. The decision-making process should prioritize compliance, tenant well-being, and long-term asset value over short-term cost savings. Question 14. Comparative studies suggest that proactive risk assessment is crucial for maintaining the integrity of building water supply systems. As a real property administrator, which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory expectations and ethical obligations for managing water sources, distribution, and pressure? Option A. Rely solely on municipal water quality reports and assume the building's internal distribution system is functioning optimally without specific inspection. Option B. Prioritize the lowest cost options for all water system components and maintenance, deferring upgrades until absolutely necessary. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment of the water supply system, identifying potential hazards, analyzing their likelihood and impact, and developing prioritized mitigation strategies. Option D. Address water supply issues only as they arise, focusing on immediate repairs to minimize disruption and cost. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment of the water supply system, identifying potential hazards, analyzing their likelihood and impact, and developing prioritized mitigation strategies. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a real property administrator, RPA, due to the critical nature of water supply systems to building operations and tenant well-being. Ensuring a consistent and safe water supply involves understanding complex infrastructure, potential failure points, and regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in proactively identifying and mitigating risks associated with water sources, distribution, and pressure, which can impact everything from daily operations and tenant satisfaction to health and safety, and even structural integrity. A failure in this area can lead to significant financial losses, legal liabilities, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to balance operational efficiency, cost-effectiveness, and the paramount duty of care to building occupants and the property itself. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive risk assessment that systematically identifies potential hazards within the water supply system, analyzes their likelihood and impact, and prioritizes mitigation strategies. This approach aligns with the RPA's professional responsibility to maintain safe and functional properties. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing public health and building safety, implicitly or explicitly require property managers to ensure the integrity of essential services like water supply. Ethically, an RPA has a duty to protect the health, safety, and welfare of building occupants. A proactive risk assessment allows for the implementation of preventative maintenance, emergency preparedness plans, and informed capital expenditure decisions, thereby fulfilling these obligations. This method ensures that potential issues are addressed before they escalate into crises, safeguarding the property and its users. Incorrect approach is analysis. Focusing solely on reactive maintenance and addressing issues only when they arise is an incorrect approach. This reactive stance fails to meet the proactive duty of care expected of an RPA. It ignores the potential for cascading failures and significant disruption, which can lead to substantial repair costs and tenant dissatisfaction. From a regulatory standpoint, a reactive approach may violate building codes or health regulations that mandate the maintenance of safe water systems. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of diligence and foresight, potentially exposing occupants to health risks and the property owner to liability. Prioritizing cost savings above all else when evaluating water system components or maintenance schedules is another incorrect approach. While fiscal responsibility is important, it must not compromise safety or operational reliability. Using substandard materials or deferring essential maintenance due to cost concerns can lead to premature system failures, increased long-term repair expenses, and potential health hazards, all of which outweigh any short-term savings. This approach directly conflicts with regulatory requirements for safe building systems and the ethical obligation to provide a secure environment. Ignoring potential impacts of external factors such as drought or localized contamination events on the building's water supply is also an incorrect approach. While an RPA may not directly control external conditions, they are responsible for understanding how these factors could affect the property and developing contingency plans. Failing to consider these external risks leaves the building vulnerable to supply disruptions, quality issues, and potential health crises, violating the duty to ensure a reliable and safe water supply. This oversight can lead to non-compliance with health advisories and emergency preparedness mandates. Professional reasoning. Professionals in property administration should adopt a risk-based management framework for critical building systems like water supply. This involves 1. Systematic identification. Regularly inspect and document all components of the water supply system from source to point of use. 2. Hazard analysis. Identify potential failure points such as aging pipes, pump malfunctions, pressure fluctuations, contamination risks, and external environmental threats. 3. Impact and likelihood assessment. Evaluate the potential consequences of each identified hazard, e.g., health risks, operational downtime, structural damage, and the probability of its occurrence. 4. Prioritization and mitigation. Develop and implement strategies to mitigate the highest priority risks. This includes preventative maintenance schedules, backup systems, water quality testing protocols, and emergency response plans. 5. Regular review and update. Periodically review and update the risk assessment and mitigation strategies to reflect changes in the system, building usage, or external conditions. This structured approach ensures that resources are allocated effectively to protect the property and its occupants, ensuring compliance with all applicable regulations and upholding ethical standards. Question 15. The assessment process reveals a tenant reporting a persistent drip from their bathtub faucet, leading to water staining on the vanity below. As a real property administrator, RPA, operating under U.S. federal and state regulations, what is the most compliant and professionally responsible course of action to address this plumbing fixture issue? Option A. Immediately schedule a licensed plumber to diagnose the leak. Repair or replace the faulty faucet cartridge and any damaged seals, ensuring all work adheres to the International Plumbing Code, IP, or Uniform Plumbing Code, UPC, as adopted by the local jurisdiction, and document the repair for property records. Option B. Advise the tenant to purchase a new faucet and install it themselves to save on repair costs, as the property owner is not responsible for minor fixture leaks. Option C. Apply a temporary sealant around the base of the faucet to stop the visible dripping and inform the tenant that the issue has been resolved, deferring a full inspection until the next scheduled maintenance cycle. Option D. Replace the entire bathtub faucet assembly with the least expensive model available, without consulting the local plumbing code or a licensed professional, to quickly resolve the tenant's complaint. The correct answer is A. Immediately schedule a licensed plumber to diagnose the leak, repair or replace the faulty faucet cartridge and any damaged seals, ensuring all work adheres to the International Plumbing Code, IPC, or Uniform Plumbing Code, UPC, as adopted by the local jurisdiction, and document the repair for property records. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common scenario in property management. A tenant reports a persistent leak from a bathroom fixture. This situation is professionally challenging because it requires a prompt and effective response to prevent further property damage, maintain tenant satisfaction, and ensure compliance with building codes and landlord-tenant regulations. The administrator must balance immediate repair needs with long-term maintenance strategies and regulatory adherence. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation and repair process that prioritizes safety and compliance. This includes identifying the source of the leak, determining if the fixture itself is faulty or if the issue stems from the plumbing system, and then executing repairs or replacements according to applicable building codes and manufacturer specifications. For a real property administrator, RPA, operating under U.S. regulations, this means consulting the International Plumbing Code, IPC, or the Uniform Plumbing Code, UPC, depending on local adoption, as well as any state or local amendments. These codes dictate proper installation, materials, and maintenance standards for plumbing fixtures to ensure public health and safety. An incorrect approach would be to simply patch the leak without investigating its root cause. This fails to address potential underlying issues, such as corroded pipes or improper sealing, which could lead to more significant damage and violate building codes that require sound plumbing systems. Another incorrect approach is to replace the fixture with a non-compliant model, such as one that does not meet water efficiency standards if mandated by local or state law, or one that is not installed according to code, potentially creating new leaks or structural issues. Ignoring the leak altogether or delaying repairs significantly is also a failure, as it can lead to mold growth, structural damage, and breaches of the landlord's duty to maintain the property in a habitable condition, as often stipulated in state landlord-tenant acts. Professionals should approach such situations by first documenting the tenant's report and conducting an immediate inspection. If the issue appears to be a fixture malfunction, the next step is to consult the property's maintenance records and relevant plumbing codes to determine the appropriate course of action, whether it be repair or replacement. Engaging a licensed plumber is crucial for ensuring that work is performed to code. A robust preventative maintenance program, which includes regular inspections of plumbing fixtures, is also a key component of professional property management, helping to identify and address potential problems before they escalate. Question 16. Regulatory review indicates that a multi-story commercial building managed by a real property administrator (RPA) has a fire detection and alarm system comprising various smoke detectors, heat detectors, manual pull stations, and a central control panel. The RPA is tasked with ensuring the system's ongoing operational readiness and compliance with all relevant fire safety regulations. Considering the critical nature of these systems, which of the following approaches best ensures the building's fire safety and regulatory adherence? Option A. Conduct annual visual inspections of all components and rely on the system's historical reliability, only scheduling maintenance if a false alarm or malfunction is reported. Option B. Implement a comprehensive maintenance program that includes regular functional testing of all detection devices, manual pull stations, and the alarm panel, adhering strictly to the testing frequencies and procedures mandated by local fire codes and manufacturer guidelines. Option C. Prioritize cost savings by performing only basic visual checks and assuming the system is functional as long as no immediate issues are apparent, deferring any in-depth testing until a significant incident occurs. Option D. Update the system to the latest technological standards without verifying if the existing components are still functional or if the maintenance schedule aligns with current regulatory requirements for the installed system. The correct answer is A. Conduct annual visual inspections of all components and rely on the system's historical reliability, only scheduling maintenance if a false alarm or malfunction is reported. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a real property administrator, RPA, due to the critical nature of fire safety systems and the potential for significant liability. The RPA must balance operational efficiency, cost-effectiveness, and, most importantly, the safety of building occupants and the protection of property. Misinterpreting or neglecting regulatory requirements for fire detection and alarm systems can lead to severe consequences, including legal penalties, increased insurance premiums, and tragically, loss of life or property damage. The challenge lies in understanding the specific operational nuances of different detection technologies and ensuring their maintenance aligns with mandated standards, rather than relying on superficial or outdated practices. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive understanding of the building's specific fire detection and alarm system components, their operational principles, and the mandated maintenance schedule as outlined by the relevant building codes and fire safety regulations applicable to the RPA's jurisdiction. This includes verifying that smoke detectors are tested for sensitivity and functionality, heat detectors are checked for proper activation thresholds, manual pull stations are inspected for accessibility and operability, and the central alarm control panel is functioning correctly with all zones properly identified. Maintenance must adhere to the frequency and procedures specified by the manufacturer's guidelines and local fire codes, which often dictate annual or semi-annual inspections and functional tests. This proactive and compliant approach ensures the system's reliability in an emergency, fulfilling the RPA's duty of care and regulatory obligations. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to rely solely on visual inspections without conducting functional tests. While a visual check can identify obvious damage or obstructions, it does not confirm that the system will actually activate or transmit an alarm signal when needed. This failure to test operational readiness directly contravenes the spirit and letter of fire safety regulations, which mandate that systems be proven functional. Another incorrect approach is to defer maintenance based on the perceived low risk of fire or the absence of recent false alarms. Fire safety systems are designed for emergency situations, and their effectiveness cannot be assumed based on the lack of past incidents. Regulations require scheduled maintenance regardless of perceived risk, as component failure can occur unexpectedly. This approach neglects the preventative aspect of maintenance and exposes the building to unacceptable risk. A third incorrect approach is to assume that a system installed years ago remains compliant without periodic reevaluation against current codes. Building codes and fire safety standards evolve. What was compliant at the time of installation may not meet current requirements for detector types, placement, or system integration. Failure to review and update maintenance protocols to reflect current regulations is a significant oversight. Professional reasoning. When faced with maintaining fire detection and alarm systems, an RPA should adopt a systematic, risk-informed, and compliance-driven approach. This begins with a thorough understanding of the specific system installed, its components, and the manufacturer's recommendations. Crucially, the RPA must identify and consult the applicable local, state, and national fire codes and building regulations governing fire detection and alarm systems in their jurisdiction. This research will dictate the required types of detectors, their placement, the testing procedures, and the frequency of maintenance. The RPA should then develop a detailed maintenance schedule that aligns with these regulatory mandates and manufacturer specifications. Regular functional testing, sensitivity checks, where applicable, and professional servicing by qualified technicians are paramount. Documentation of all inspections, tests, and maintenance activities is essential for demonstrating compliance and for future reference. In cases of doubt or when dealing with complex systems, consulting with fire safety professionals or the local fire marshal is a prudent step to ensure full compliance and optimal system performance. Question 17. Consider a scenario where a real property administrator, RPA, is responsible for a commercial office building. During a routine inspection, the RPA notices subtle but consistent fluctuations in the building's internal temperature, particularly in areas furthest from the central air handling units. The building is older, and the HVAC system has not undergone a major overhaul in over a decade. The RPA's primary objective is to ensure tenant comfort and operational efficiency while managing the property's budget. What is the most prudent and professionally responsible approach for the RPA to take in addressing this situation? Option A. Immediately authorize a budget for replacing the entire HVAC system to preemptively address any potential future failures, regardless of the current system's operational status. Option B. Wait for tenants to formally complain about the temperature issues before scheduling any inspections or repairs, as this indicates a clear and immediate problem. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment of the HVAC system, including a review of maintenance logs, energy consumption data, and consultation with a qualified HVAC engineer to identify potential causes for the temperature fluctuations and recommend preventative measures. Option D. Instruct the building's maintenance staff to adjust thermostat set points in affected areas to compensate for the fluctuations, without investigating the root cause of the problem. Correct answer is C. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment of the HVAC system, including a review of maintenance logs, energy consumption data, and consultation with a qualified HVAC engineer to identify potential causes for the temperature fluctuations and recommend preventative measures. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a real property administrator, RPA, to balance operational efficiency, tenant comfort, and regulatory compliance within the context of HVAC systems. The RPA must understand the fundamental principles of HVAC to identify potential risks and implement appropriate mitigation strategies, all while adhering to the specific regulatory framework governing their practice. The core challenge lies in proactively identifying and addressing potential system failures or inefficiencies that could lead to significant disruptions, increased operating costs, or tenant dissatisfaction, all of which fall under the RPA's purview. The correct approach involves a proactive risk assessment focused on identifying potential HVAC system failures and their impact. This approach is right because it aligns with the RPA's ethical and professional responsibility to maintain the property in good working order, ensure tenant safety and comfort, and manage operational costs effectively. Specifically, it demonstrates due diligence in anticipating problems before they occur, thereby minimizing potential financial losses, legal liabilities, and reputational damage. This proactive stance is implicitly supported by general principles of property management that emphasize preventative maintenance and risk mitigation, which are foundational to responsible asset management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reactive responses to tenant complaints is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of foresight and a disregard for the RPA's duty to maintain the property proactively. It can lead to prolonged tenant discomfort, potential health hazards, e.g., poor air quality, and escalating repair costs due to delayed intervention. Ethically, it falls short of the expected standard of care for a property administrator. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate cost savings by deferring necessary maintenance or upgrades is also professionally unsound. While cost management is important, neglecting essential HVAC maintenance can lead to more significant and expensive failures down the line, increased energy consumption, and potential noncompliance with building codes or environmental regulations. This approach demonstrates poor long-term financial planning and a failure to uphold the fiduciary duty to the property owner. A third incorrect approach that involves making significant HVAC system changes without consulting relevant technical experts or reviewing system performance data is risky and unprofessional. This can lead to unintended consequences, such as reduced system efficiency, increased strain on other components, or even safety hazards. It bypasses established best practices for system management and can result in costly errors. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic risk assessment framework. This includes identifying potential HVAC system vulnerabilities, evaluating the likelihood and impact of failure, and developing mitigation strategies. The RPA should consult relevant technical documentation, engage with qualified HVAC professionals for expert advice, and consider the long-term implications of any decisions on operational costs, tenant satisfaction, and regulatory compliance. Prioritizing preventative maintenance and informed decision-making based on data and expert consultation is paramount. Question 18. Benchmark analysis indicates that a multi-tenant commercial building's existing fire suppression system, a combination of older sprinkler heads and a standpipe system, is approaching its recommended service life. The building owner is seeking cost-effective solutions to ensure continued compliance and tenant safety. The RPA is tasked with recommending the most appropriate course of action. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the RPA's professional responsibilities and regulatory requirements for fire suppression systems? Option A. Recommend a complete overhaul of the entire fire suppression system, including replacing the standpipe piping and all sprinkler heads with the most advanced, state-of-the-art technology available, regardless of current code requirements or budget constraints. Option B. Advise the owner to simply continue routine maintenance on the existing sprinkler heads and standpipe system, as they are still technically functional, and postpone any significant upgrades indefinitely. Option C. Recommend a phased upgrade of the sprinkler heads to modern, high-performance models and a thorough inspection and testing of the standpipe system, while deferring any major standpipe system modifications until a future capital improvement cycle, provided current testing confirms functionality. Option D. Propose replacing all sprinkler heads with a less expensive, non-water-based fire suppression system, such as a clean agent system, to reduce immediate installation costs and minimize tenant disruption. The correct answer is C. Recommend a phased upgrade of the sprinkler heads to modern, high-performance models and a thorough inspection and testing of the standpipe system, while deferring any major standpipe system modifications until a future capital improvement cycle, provided current testing confirms functionality. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the real property administrator, RPA, to balance competing priorities, ensuring tenant safety and operational efficiency with managing capital expenditures and potential disruptions. The RPA must navigate the complexities of fire safety regulations, building codes, and the practical implications of system upgrades. Careful judgment is required to select the most appropriate and compliant fire suppression strategy. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of the building's current fire suppression systems, a thorough review of applicable local and national fire codes, such as NFPA standards, which are commonly adopted in U.S. jurisdictions for fire safety, and an evaluation of the building's specific risks and occupancy. This approach prioritizes life safety and regulatory compliance by ensuring that the chosen system meets or exceeds minimum safety standards. It also considers the long-term operational and financial implications, aiming for a solution that is both effective and sustainable. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without a proper risk assessment or code review would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for regulatory mandates designed to protect occupants and property. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing a system based on outdated or irrelevant standards would also be a significant ethical and regulatory failure, as it would not provide adequate protection and could lead to non-compliance. Finally, an approach that prioritizes tenant convenience over essential safety upgrades, delaying necessary improvements without a clear, documented justification and mitigation plan, would be a dereliction of the RPA's duty to maintain a safe environment. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the regulatory landscape. This involves identifying all applicable codes and standards. Next, a thorough assessment of the existing conditions and potential risks is crucial. This should be followed by an evaluation of various compliance solutions, considering their effectiveness, cost, and operational impact. Finally, documentation of the decision-making process, including the rationale for the chosen approach and any deviations from standard practice, is essential for accountability and future reference. Question 19. The investigation demonstrates that a commercial office building managed by an RPA is experiencing occupant complaints related to perceived poor indoor air quality, including headaches and fatigue. The RPA needs to determine the most appropriate course of action to address these concerns, considering the building's existing HVAC system capabilities and operational budget, while strictly adhering to the regulatory framework for real property administrators. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the professional responsibilities and regulatory requirements for an RPA in this situation? Option A. Conduct a detailed assessment of current filtration levels, e.g., MERV ratings, and verify that ventilation rates meet or exceed the minimum requirements stipulated by the applicable local building codes and IAQ standards. Then develop a targeted remediation plan based on these findings. Option B. Immediately upgrade all air filters to the highest MERV rating available and increase fan speeds to maximize air exchange, without first assessing current performance or specific IAQ standards. Option C. Post a notice in common areas acknowledging the complaints and advising occupants to report any specific symptoms to their personal physicians, while deferring any building system investigation until a later date due to budget constraints. Option D. Rely on general industry best practices for IAQ management and implement common solutions, assuming they will address the occupant complaints, without specific verification against local regulations or building performance data. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed assessment of current filtration levels, e.g., MERV ratings, and verify that ventilation rates meet or exceed the minimum requirements stipulated by the applicable local building codes and IAQ standards. Then develop a targeted remediation plan based on these findings. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a real property administrator, RPA, to balance competing interests, ensuring occupant health and safety through adequate indoor air quality, IAQ, while managing operational costs and building system capabilities. The investigation's findings, indicating potential IAQ issues, necessitate a proactive and informed risk assessment to determine the most effective and compliant course of action. The RPA must navigate the complexities of IAQ standards, filtration technologies, and ventilation requirements without compromising the building's functionality or exceeding regulatory mandates. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both protective of tenant health and fiscally responsible, adhering strictly to the specified regulatory framework. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment that prioritizes occupant health and regulatory compliance by evaluating current filtration and ventilation performance against established IAQ standards. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the identified potential IAQ issues through a systematic, evidence-based process. It involves understanding the specific IAQ standards applicable to the building's jurisdiction, assessing the effectiveness of existing filtration systems, e.g., MERV ratings, and verifying that ventilation rates meet or exceed minimum requirements as defined by relevant codes and guidelines. This proactive evaluation allows for targeted interventions, such as upgrading filters or adjusting ventilation settings, to mitigate identified risks effectively and ethically, aligning with the RPA's duty of care. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost savings by maintaining existing, potentially inadequate filtration and ventilation would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from prioritizing financial considerations over occupant well-being and regulatory adherence. Such an approach neglects the potential for long-term health impacts on occupants and the associated liability for the building owner. It also violates the ethical obligation to provide a safe and healthy environment. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing expensive, unverified IAQ solutions without a thorough assessment of current performance and specific IAQ standards would also be professionally unsound. This approach is flawed because it lacks a data-driven basis, potentially leading to unnecessary expenditure without effectively addressing the root cause of any IAQ issues. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to apply a systematic risk management process, which is a cornerstone of responsible property management. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or industry best practices from other jurisdictions, without confirming their applicability and compliance with the specific regulatory framework governing the building, is also professionally deficient. This demonstrates a failure to adhere to the strict jurisdictional requirements of the RPA designation, potentially leading to noncompliance with local laws and standards, and exposing the building and its management to legal and financial risks. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework, including specific IAQ standards, ventilation codes, and any relevant building performance guidelines. This should be followed by a systematic investigation of the reported IAQ concerns, gathering data on current system performance, filtration efficiency, ventilation rates. A risk assessment should then be conducted to evaluate the potential health impacts and regulatory noncompliance associated with the findings. Based on this assessment, targeted and cost-effective solutions should be identified and implemented, with ongoing monitoring to ensure their effectiveness and continued compliance. Question 20. The analysis reveals that a commercial property managed by a real property administrator is experiencing high energy costs associated with its outdated lighting system. The administrator is tasked with proposing a lighting upgrade strategy. Which of the following approaches, based on a risk assessment framework, best balances regulatory compliance, operational efficiency, and tenant considerations for this scenario? Option A. Select the lighting solution with the lowest initial purchase price to immediately reduce capital expenditure, deferring any consideration of long-term energy savings or future regulatory changes. Option B. Replace existing fixtures with standard, non-energy efficient alternatives that are readily available, focusing solely on restoring basic illumination levels. Option C. Prioritize a comprehensive risk assessment that evaluates energy-efficient lighting technologies and controls, considering their lifecycle costs, compliance with current building energy codes, and potential impact on tenant comfort and productivity. Option D. Implement the most technologically advanced lighting control system available, assuming it will automatically optimize energy usage without assessing tenant needs or providing necessary training. The correct answer is C. Prioritize a comprehensive risk assessment that evaluates energy-efficient lighting technologies and controls, considering their lifecycle costs, compliance with current building energy codes, and potential impact on tenant comfort and productivity. Explanation. The analysis reveals a common challenge in property management: balancing operational efficiency and cost-effectiveness with regulatory compliance and tenant well-being. Specifically concerning lighting systems, the professional challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate and compliant approach to upgrading lighting in a commercial property, considering the diverse needs of tenants, the building's age, and evolving energy efficiency standards. A risk assessment approach is crucial here, as it systematically evaluates potential hazards and opportunities associated with different lighting solutions. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment that prioritizes energy-efficient lighting technologies and controls, aligning with current building codes and environmental regulations. This approach is professionally sound because it proactively identifies potential cost savings through reduced energy consumption, minimizes the risk of non-compliance with energy efficiency mandates, and enhances the property's marketability by offering modern, sustainable amenities. Furthermore, it considers the impact on tenant comfort and productivity, which are key factors in tenant retention and satisfaction. This aligns with the ethical responsibility of a real property administrator to manage assets responsibly and sustainably. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the lowest upfront cost for lighting replacement without considering long-term energy savings or regulatory implications. This fails to account for the total cost of ownership and ignores potential penalties or the need for future, more expensive retrofits if current installations do not meet evolving energy codes. Another incorrect approach is to implement advanced lighting controls without adequate tenant consultation or training. This could lead to tenant dissatisfaction, improper use of the system, and a failure to realize the intended energy savings, thereby negating the benefits of the technology and potentially creating operational issues. A third incorrect approach is to select lighting types based on aesthetic preference alone, disregarding energy efficiency ratings and compliance with local building standards. This overlooks the fundamental responsibility to manage the property in an economically and environmentally responsible manner. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a structured process. First, understanding the specific regulatory landscape governing energy efficiency in commercial buildings within the relevant jurisdiction. Second, conducting a thorough assessment of the existing lighting infrastructure and identifying areas for improvement. Third, evaluating various lighting technologies and control systems based on their energy performance, life cycle costs, and compliance with regulations. Fourth, consulting with stakeholders, including tenants and building engineers, to understand their needs and concerns. Finally, selecting the solution that offers the best balance of cost-effectiveness, energy efficiency, regulatory compliance, and tenant satisfaction, supported by a clear risk assessment.